Hello, and welcome back for another episode of Patriotic Housewife. Well, we all knew this was kind of coming, or at least I had a feeling it was. Dan Bongino is stepping down from the FBI to go back to podcasting. So that is not a shock to me. I had a feeling that was going to come at some point. We really weren't seeing much of Dan Bongino recently. And especially after the e-files have been, coming out and that stuff has been going on, I think he has had enough. I don't think he wanted anything to do with what's going on with Charlie Kirk. I think, and this is my opinion, that Cash, there's obviously something going on with Cash Patel. Cash Patel now is not the Cash Patel that we all were excited to see be the director of the FBI. I know there's several people who share that same viewpoint with me, but it looks like it says that Dan Bongino says he's leaving the FBI in January. Asked December 17th if Bongino told him if he was leaving and why. Trump said, Dan did a great job. I think he wants to go back to his show. And that's basically what happened. He announced on December 17th that he's leaving in January after less than a year as the number 2 official at the nation's premier law enforcement agency. And after a reported conflict with Attorney General Pam Bondi over the release of the e-files, Bongino, a former podcaster, had been telling people he is leaving his job early next year and has been clearing out his office. MS Now reported, and Trump seemed to confirm the departure to the reporters before Bongino posted about it on social media. And an ex confirming his departure, Bongino thanked Trump, Bondi, and FBI Director Kash Patel for the opportunity to serve with purpose. Most importantly, I want to thank my fellow Americans for the privilege to serve you. God bless America and all those who defend her. Bongino wrote. Trump praised Bongino when asked asked about him on December 17th. And we already kind of went over that. Dan did a good job. I think he wants to go back to his show. Bongino is a former Secret Service agent, New York City police officer, and hosts a podcast, The Dan Bongino Show, which most of us know him from, which brought him an audience of millions of followers and supporters of Trump's Make America Great Again movement. Since March, he has helped lead a big shakeup of federal law enforcement by loyalists appointed by Trump, who, like Bongino, have been deeply critical of the FBI and the Department of Justice. After Trump appointed Patel to lead the FBI and Bongino as his deputy, the agency purged top officials, including a former acting director and senior leaders, after claiming they were too politicized and not sufficiently loyal to Trump's agenda. Some of the ousted FBI leaders filed a federal lawsuit allegedly they had been illegally terminated. A clash of conservative podcaster and FBI roles, Bongino's role in the Secret Service's Presidential Protective Division and as a police officer had helped propel him into a prominent position as a Fox News host and prominent voice in conservative media. He used that platform to rail repeatedly against the FBI and DOJ for their handling of the e-files, suggesting a cover-up intended to protect influential men who were allegedly part of the late financier's ST ring. He also suggested that E did not die by suicide in 2019 while awaiting trial in the New York jail on federal ST charges. But Bongino's tenure as deputy FBI director was marked by conflict as sought to shed his role as a provocative media personality and establish himself as the agency deputy who traditionally oversees the vast law enforcement agency and its day-to-day operations. The role has previously been held by career FBI agents who were familiar with its broad portfolio of law enforcement and intelligent work. Once at the FBI, Bongino declared on Fox News that he reviewed the FBI files and determined that E did, in fact, kill himself and that he didn't keep a client list as pro-MAGA conservatives had claimed. Last July, the FBI and the DOJ further infuriated Bongino's former followers by announcing that following an exhaustive review, they were not going to release the e-files after determining that no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. That sparked a dispute between Bongino and Bondi, with sources telling Axios, other media and other media outlets that he was planning to quit over the announcement. Cash Patel and Dan Bongino are livid with Pam Bondi over a DOJ memo and the lack of transparency from her office regarding the e-files. Maggie influencer Laura Loomer said on X at the time. In early December, Bongino tried to reconcile his former claims that January 6, 2021 uh, pipe case was an inside job by the FBI with the fact that the authorities had just arrested a suspect in the case with no connection to the Bureau. Bongino told Fox News that while he had been paid as a podcaster to express his opinions, he was now at the FBI where he was paid to be your deputy director, and we base investigations on facts. In August, the White House announced that Missouri State Attorney General Andrew Bailey would become a second deputy FBI director, effectively sharing the job with Bongino, a move many FBI watchers interpreted as dissatisfaction with the job he was doing. So that's that article, and that's from USA Today. The reason I wanted to read that is because I think that that's interesting. Of course, he wants to go back to podcasting, but I think it comes back to, in my opinion, I think Dan was put in a position where he felt that he had to do something or be complicit in something or along those lines, and he did not like it. And I think with everything and all the controversy and all the holes in the investigation with Charlie Kirk, I think Dan did not want to be a part of that anymore. I don't think he knows what's going on per se, but I think he knows something's not adding up and something's not right. And I think he wants to distance himself. And he was such a successful podcaster. I also know that I heard that, there were marital issues and his wife and him were really struggling to keep their marriage together with the distance and him being at the FBI. So it was better for, personal reasons for him to step down, go back home to living with his wife and go back to his podcast. He felt like he wanted to live a simpler life. And I think Dan was happy that way. I really liked Dan Bongino. And when he was working along Cash in the FBI, I've had big questions about Cash. I've been very open about that. I'm very, very disappointed. And I really didn't know what to make of Dan. I felt like Dan was always good. And I think he probably could feel that his reputation and who he was might have been getting kind of tarnished because of the association with Cash. And I think at some point you have to come to terms with, do you want to be a part of that? And I think he felt like, yes, his marital issues were one aspect. And, living a simple life isn't a bad thing. And I think a lot of people start to realize that in certain aspects when there's so much stress around something. Even me personally working in medical device sales, was the stress, you make great money, but was the stress worth me having health issues and, missing out on things because you're just always so busy. So you're missing out on family moments and family vacations. Memories are what really matters. And so maybe Dan's come to that same realization that in life there's more than just work. My dad always used to say, you work to live, you don't live to work. And I think maybe Dan's come to that conclusion himself. And so I'm super excited for him to go back to his podcast. I thought his podcast was great. I'm sure many of us are looking forward to that, looking forward to seeing what kind of information he's willing to be honest about. What can he be honest about? And if he can't, will he do it anyway? I think we're all waiting on that to see, especially with the way this whole Charlie Kirk situation is playing out. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Obviously, please like, comment, and share the video. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. I would love to have you be a part of the community. We are sharing all different kinds of content from politics to current events to true crime, and all kinds of other different things as we go. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys are having a great weekend, and I will see you in the next one.